All right, so here we go. Another find here. Some of April's costly storms: U.S. tornadoes, Canada floods, Mozambique cyclone. I believe these are the numbers from insurance companies here. Yep, Insurance Journal. It says here, article, some of April's natural catastrophes included elevated number of tornadoes, United States, strongest cyclone ever to hit Mozambique on record, and costly seasonal flooding in eastern Canada that inundated nearly 10,000 homes, according to ON's latest monthly global catastrophe recap report. And if you click here on the link, you will see a PDF here for April.
This is just April.
Just April. So, executive summary: 250 plus tornadoes touched down, the highest number since 2011. Wow. 140 mile an hour intensity of a cyclone Kenneth at landfall. The strongest storm to hit Mozambique. Remember, we had a die also out there 6 weeks before that. That was almost as strong. 10,000 homes lost in Canada for flooding. 374 deaths reported globally due to flooding and severe weather events. Seems like a drop in a bucket, right, for billions of people, but still quite a bit of people died. And this report here is really, really, really in depth, talking about the money that, okay, like right here on April 10th to April 12th, winter weather was the reason for loss. Thousands of structures were turning in claims, over $100 million in damage just from winter weather. Severe weather, Plains Southeast, 4 deaths, thousands of structures claims, hundreds of millions of dollars lost. Severe weather, Plains Southeast, this is 423 through 425, thousands claims, hundreds of millions of dollars lost. 430 through 502, severe weather, Plain Midwest, 2 deaths, thousands of claims, and hundreds of millions of dollars. Another severe weather event in the Plains, Southeast, Midwest, Northeast, 9 deaths, 90,000 claims, and 925 plus million. So just unreal on the amount of money that we have seen flying out the window. Softball size hail, 4.5 inches in diameter, damaging straight lines across the Southeast from April 5th through the 8th. The most significant hail damage occurred in Texas. Other states citing damage included parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama. Total economic loss was listed upwards of $250 million, with insurers covering only $190 million of that. So who pays for the other $60 million? Comes out of the customer's pocket, folks. Excellent report here, guys. I recommend this. This takes more than just me talking about it on the air for a few minutes. Everyone should go to this link. Forget about the article and the commentary or whatever. This is the raw information, okay? So when I'm sitting here talking about, oh, cosmic rays and floods all over the world, here it is. Here it is right here, guys. South America. Millions of dollars in lost economics. Unknown, not as much in Colombia, limited information. This figure here, just for April in Europe, millions of dollars lost in Greece. More Spain, whether tens of millions were lost as well. Hundreds of claims in the Middle East. There were no significant disasters in the Middle East in the month of April. That's because Iran was behaving themselves. Africa, 422 through 425. South Africa flooding, thousands of claims, 100 plus million in loss. Cyclone Kenneth, 60,000 claims and 100 plus million in losses. And think about this, guys. If there's 100 million plus loss in these parts of the world that are not considered modernized or technology and everything, I mean, think about the loss had they have been modernized in some areas. The money would be through the roof. And I bet you the majority of the loss here is from the crops. Asia, tons of stuff here. Millions of dollars in lost economics, thousands of claims, anything from wildfire to severe weather, flooding, severe weather, earthquake. Philippines, over 5,000 claims, $50+ million in losses. And it gets worse. Australia, New Zealand. So here's an appendix at the end showing the January through March. I mean, when you scroll through this and see all the hundreds of millions and the 20+ millions and 17 millions, and look at this, Africa, Cyclone Idai caused $2 billion+ in losses. $2 billion. And then right after that, more flooding, South Africa. And of course, Kenneth, happening in May. Asia, hundreds of millions of dollars lost in economic losses. Hundreds of thousands of claims. I mean, eventually, again, this is 1 month. So in some spots it read that 250 million were done in damages and only 190 of it is going to be covered by insurance. That's a big problem, folks. And that number is going to get worse by the year. Next year, next spring. My gosh, I don't even want to think about it. You thought the snowpack was bad this year. Of course, you know, who knows? We might just have to deal with the raw cold and ice next year and not even worry about a bunch of snowfall because it's too cold to snow. Maybe. And then people will really start to feel the effects of why cold weather is a lot more dangerous than hot weather. So, important stuff, folks. Please check this article out on our website. It is the first article that we talk about tonight on the climate news. And once again, a great find from Mari. North Korea says it's suffering its worst drought in decades. We mentioned this the other night in the broadcast. They're amongst their economic issues, amongst sanctions handed down by the United States, crop shortages, and now they're reportedly suffering its worst drought in nearly 4 decades amid reports of severe food shortages. So, on top of severe food shortages, folks, not just food loss, but severe food shortages, now we are suffering the worst drought in 40 years plus. The report came in after UN food agencies said in a joint assessment earlier this month that about 10 million people in North Korea were facing severe food shortages after the country had one of the worst harvests in a decade. In February, North Korea's ambassador to the United States, Kim Song, issued an unusual appeal for urgent food assistance. We mentioned this the other night in the headlines on Global News, or Google News and Global News. Many places are now reporting severe food loss, severe food crisis, severe food shortage, major crop loss. Again, when we started this channel in 2016, it was a little bit in the news, not a lot. And then 2017, it got a little worse. And then 2018, it got a little more widespread. But I got to tell you right now, 2019 takes the cake. There has been more reporting about food shortages throughout the world, more than I've ever seen here in the first 5 months of 2019. Lots of headlines. All right. So Jakobshavn, the mighty Greenland glacier, slams on the brakes. And what they're saying here, and I'll read this, European satellites have detailed the abrupt change in behavior of one of Greenland's most important glaciers. In the 2000s, the Jakobshavn was the fastest flowing ice stream on the island, traveling at 17 kilometers a year. As it sped to the ocean, its front end also retreated and thinned, dropping in height by as much as 20 meters a year. That's a lot. All right. But now it's all changed. Jakobshavn is traveling much more slowly, and its trunk has even begun to thicken and lengthen. It's a complete reversal in behavior and it wasn't predicted, said Dr. Anna Hogg from Leeds University at the UK Centre for Polar Observation and Modeling, CPOM. The question is now, what's next for Jakobshavn? Is this a pause, or is it a switch off the dynamic thinning we've seen previously? The glacier is sited in the southwest Greenland. It's famous for spectacular production of icebergs. Colossal blocks form its terminus and drift down its ford out into the Disco Bay, onwards to the North Atlantic. More than likely, it was Jakobshavn that spawned the iceberg that sank the Titanic. Fun fact, kids. So, interesting article here talking about things doing a 180. And again, of course, we all hear that the consensus says that we are warming and the ice is melting. And for this person to write in this article, wow, it's actually doing the opposite, and it wasn't predicted. And that to me shows the amazement of, wow, wait a minute. We thought this was going to melt and continue to retreat, and now it's regaining its strength and growth and thickness. What's happening? Could the consensus be wrong? Oh my. We have much more, folks. Stay tuned. Keep coming. Keep coming here. Yeah. All right. Here we go. So let's get into this. Let's talk about, well, these guys are left-wing liberals who agree with the democratic socialists of the idea of the Green New Deal and how man is affecting climate change. I want to warn you guys right now that there is bad language in this, and I think it's important that this is played tonight, and it's not to be rude or crude or anything like that. I just got to know, folks. I have to know, and I want your opinion after this, and I'm sure some of you seen this. Let's watch this debacle, and I got another one for you too. I promise there's a point to it all.
That was, to its eternal credit, the Green New Deal has succeeded in getting people talking. But that won't mean anything unless that talk now turns to actions. And putting a price on carbon could potentially be one of them. Although, let me reiterate, it will not be enough on its own by a long shot. We're going to need a lot of different policies working in tandem, and we have to take action right now. But you don't have to just take that from me. Instead, I'm happy to say that Bill Nye has actually agreed to help drive the urgency.
This is garbage, folks.
This point, but by actually doing one of his enjoyable, light-hearted demonstrations. So, Bill, please, do you have a fun experiment for us?
Here, I've got an experiment for you. Safety glasses on. By the end of this century, if emissions keep rising, the average temperature on Earth could go up another 4 to 8 degrees. What I'm saying is the planet's on fucking fire. There are a lot of things we could do to put it out. Are any of them free? No, of course not. Nothing's free, you idiots. Grow the fuck up. You're not children anymore. I didn't mind explaining photosynthesis to you when you were 12, but you're adults now, and this is an actual crisis. Got it? Safety glasses off, motherfuckers.
Oh. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, I've never even heard Oppenheimer drop that many F-bombs in one program. I mean, good grief. Could you imagine if somebody on this side of the community actually described global cooling in the same texture that Bill Nye just did here? And Jesse Waters lined this one up perfectly. If this was an actual global crisis, nobody would be laughing. Nobody would be making a joke about this. This is absolutely disgusting. And this is the new way of things, folks. This is how you're going to get talked to. When you don't agree with the consensus, okay? You're going to get talked to like this. I got a letter I want to read. Our good friend Scott Chapman. And by the way, folks, if you are from another country and speak different languages, Scott informed me today that he is willing to translate these into different languages for any customer. So I just wanted to throw that out there. If you were purchasing the PDF that he has, he is more than happy to translate it. And while we're talking about Scott Chapman, Mari, for our viewing pleasure, is going to break down the entire presentation that took place between Scott and I about the 101 of grand solar minimum. Mari has broke these down into what, 10, 20-minute videos?
9.
So we have 9 videos to watch.
They vary in time. They're shorter. They're 20, between 10 and 20 minutes long.
Okay.
And the original video had 2 hours and 45 minutes of footage. So we broke it down in chapters so people can really sort of absorb the information on the fly, without having to sit through a 2-hour.
Yeah, I mean, Scott joked with me the other day. He says, I made it through 90 minutes of it, and that was it. We don't have 2 hours and 49 minutes to sit around. And I think this is a great way for people to absorb the information that Scott has for us. So thanks again to Mari, our producer here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel, for taking the time to edit these videos down into chapters and help people understand it. Guys, I got to be honest with you. These videos are going to be short enough to where maybe you watch it one day and then a couple weeks later you go back and watch it again because you're trying to grasp everything that we're talking about on this channel. This is a great way to understand grand solar minimum science. But back to this here. Jesse Waters mentioned it great, that if this was a real crisis, nobody would be joking. But I want to get back to the point here of where I mentioned Scott. He sent me an email, and it was a letter that an educator in California had written him. And I'm working on, actually, I want to have a sit down, and I would love to talk to this guy for a few minutes and find out what it's like to be a teacher in this Common Core education system. And he has a lot of interesting comments about Common Core, which I think all of us will probably agree with his ideas and opinions about Common Core. But the point I mentioned him is that back in 1996, he went to like a workshop for science. And he's a chemistry teacher, by the way, in high school, 11th grade chemistry. And during this workshop, these instructors were showing these teachers science projects that they could bring back to the classroom to prove that man is causing climate change, and that the consensus was 97%. And basically these instructors were telling the teachers, look, this is what it is, 97% consensus. And they just repeated it over and over and over and over again and drove it in these teachers' heads. Now we're teaching the kids this crap. That's what's happening right here. Here's another one. This one's even worse. George Clooney. This one's about 3 minutes long. At least this one, they actually censor out the bad words. But I mean, are you guys floored that a guy who does science projects for children is dropping F-bombs left and right to prove his point? Is that going to convince you? Would you have voted for Donald Trump if someone called you an effing idiot? Would you have voted for Hillary Clinton if someone called you an effing idiot? If you don't do it, you're an effing idiot. Check this out.
According to a new report from the United Nations, our planet is in worse shape than at any other time in human history. They say 1 million animal and plant species are on the verge of extinction.
There's a fear-monger statement.
And climate change. And yet our federal government, not only did they do nothing about it, they seem to like it. The Secretary of State today said, Mike Pompeo said, melting sea ice presents new opportunities for trade. Great. It would be very good for the kayak industry.
Cherry picking data right there, by the way. They didn't talk about the rest of his statement.
But everyone else is screwed. And the Trump administration has done everything they can to do nothing about climate change. They just don't listen to the scientists.
No, they do listen to the scientists. They're not wasting taxpayer monies. There's nothing to do about climate change but prepare and act. That's why they've rolled back regulations, because the Obama administration was going about this the wrong way. So there's nothing man can do to stop or start it. We just have to be ready. All right, I'll stop interrupting.
A lot of people don't, not just when it comes to climate change. Scientific fact is suddenly seen as some kind of partisan scare tactic, and it endangers all of us. So one major celebrity is spearheading a new initiative to raise awareness of this foray into ignorance, and what he has to say is important. So please listen.
Hi, I'm actor, director, and two-time sexiest man alive, George Clooney. Science has given us unprecedented knowledge of the natural world, from subatomic particles to the majesty of space. Science enables us to cure diseases, to communicate across great distances, even to fly.
Note how Clooney is trying to act as if he is in favor of science, okay? And if that was true, then he would not be even talking about climate change and man-made cause and all this other shit, okay? I'm sorry. I'll leave the cussing to the liberals here.
Tragically, though, the volumes of invaluable knowledge gathered over centuries are now threatened by an epidemic of dumb idiots saying dumb.
You know what this is? It's a snowball. So it's very, very cold out.
Dumb is highly contagious, infecting the minds of even the most stable geniuses.
If you have a windmill anywhere near your house, they say the noise causes cancer.
Okay, so maybe Trump isn't all the way 100% accurate about his claim, but the noise does cause a frequency issue. Mari has talked to me about this many, many times, and what she talks about is very fascinating. What it does to mental health, your sleep patterns. Mari, I mean, what was it you were telling me about what the wind turbines do? That you said you could actually hear them in the distance?
It's like...
It's a weird droning noise. It's subtle.
It's EMF poisoning.
EMF poisoning. Okay. So, I mean, you know, Trump's on the right track. I don't know. Have you heard cancer cases from this?
I haven't heard.
Yeah.
It's more... Let me get over here so people can hear me. It's more about the sound and vibration. You know, it makes people sick. If you do any research on EMFs, there's a slew of other things that are wrong with windmills. You do the research, it's sort of shocking how bad it is. But there's a few documentaries out there, people who actually live near these turbines, and
right.
Just lack of sleep, insomnia.
So bottom line is
arrhythmia problems.
It does cause sickness.
It does.
It does cause sickness. All right, let's listen on.
Tell me that one, okay?
Wow. As a result, rampant dumb now threatens our health, our security, and our planet. Fortunately, there is hope. At United to Defeat Untruthful Misinformation and Support Science. You dumbass. Your generous contribution to You Dumbass will provide desperately needed knowledge to dumb idiots on Facebook and Twitter all around the world. Just $20 will convince one idiot that climate change is real. $50 will teach 5 brainless dumb to vaccinate their kids. And $200 will teach 10 knuckle draggers that dinosaurs existed, but not at the same time as people. Together, we can win the fight against dumb-ness, but we can't do it alone. Call this number today. Operators are standing by. Don't be an idiot. The world needs your support. You dumbass.
All right, so how do you feel out there, folks? How do you feel about being called a dumb ass, or an effing idiot, or a mother effer, or grow the F up? I tell you, never in my life would Valentina Zarkova speak to anyone with that kind of language. Same with John Casey. I mean, those are trusted people of sources there. And surely you will never catch them in a presentation or even a playful commercial that's insulting anyone's intelligence whatsoever. I mean, look, this is just proof that Hollywood would do anything for money. Anything. And this goes back to that article, or not the article, the email from the teacher, where in 1996 they really ramped it up. Workshops all over the world, I'm sure. But to drive it in that this is man's fault. And I love how George Clooney makes the claim that people don't believe that climate change isn't real. Oh, that's not the case. Climate change is real. It's just not caused by man. Carbon dioxide, CO2 is not causing climate change. And Bill Nye will tell you that the SUVs and all that are causing emissions, and that's why they're taxing it. So we use less, and our climate gets better because we can't afford to use cars anymore or heat our homes. According to Bill Nye, he says that the coal and driving SUVs are causing the planet's temperature to rise, wildfires to increase, and more floods. Funny how he doesn't talk about the record-breaking snowfall in the northern hemisphere this year. Funny that he doesn't talk about rapid ice growth in the Arctic this year. Funny how he's not talking about this glacier in Greenland. Funny how he doesn't talk about all the cold records that were broken this year. Funny how he's not talking about how last year in the spring, the soil temperature was too cold and seeds were rotting in fields. Growth seasons are getting shorter. Plantings are starting later. Food crises are popping up all over the world. And he wants to blame it on you and your SUV and your furnace running because you're using natural gas. It's just frustrating when channels like us, people like the Starman, Scott Chapman, DAP 2030, other guys that are helping out and doing the message of service. We try to keep it together. The integrity is the most important thing about this topic. That when we present the information, that it's accurate and correct and understandable. And I think that's the primary function of these kinds of information channels, is that we have to protect the integrity of this topic. So we're already fighting an uphill battle. And then top it off, the people that are opposing the work that we're doing, like George Clooney and Bill Nye, are cursing at the people who deny what the consensus is saying. Because we're starting to hear that the consensus was never the consensus. It was just taught to our instructors that it was consensus. There is no consensus in science. The point of science is to keep testing it over and over and over again. You don't settle on anything when it comes to science. Just as that glacier in Greenland did a complete opposite of what was predicted. So you can't have settled science. There's no consensus. And that even means we got to continue to test this theory of low sunspots equaling cooling temperatures, cosmic rays equaling historic floods and snowfall and cloud nucleation. That has to be continually tested. But I'll tell you, that's what I feel like we do every time we do a broadcast, when we show these articles that relate to those topics, those situations. That is more proof that we're pouring in to the bowl of science that's here at the Grand Solar Minimum channel and all the community. There's nothing but science information that we report on a by daily basis. So we're not science deniers. We're not climate deniers. We're man-made climate change deniers. Get that straight, Mr. Clooney and Mr. Nye. Nobody's denying climate change. We're just denying your propaganda that you're trying to feed and force feed it. In fact, the reason why they're cursing at us now, people, is because we're rejecting this regurgitated information and throwing it right back in their faces. So it's angering these guys because they get paid a lot of money to lie to you about man-made global warming. So they're protecting their investment by ad hominem attacks on people like me and you. If I were you guys, I wouldn't watch another George Clooney movie from here on out. I'd boycott anything that even involves him. I liked Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Not anymore. I'm getting away from these people who want to go out there. Look, if he just would have came out and said he believes in man-made global warming and we have to do something about climate change, and if you don't help, it's your children it's going to affect. I don't know if I'd have the same kind of reaction to his plea, because at least he's not ad hominem attacking anybody and attempting to act like he knows what's happening with the climate. At least the other points I just mentioned, you sympathize a little bit. Poor little guy, he doesn't know any better. That's okay. But this right here, this is completely disinformation to scare people. Point blank. I think I've said enough, guys. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. We got some weather to talk about, folks.
Do you like this show? Give us a thumbs up. Want to support us more? Share to your favorite social media platform. Buy a t-shirt or become a Patreon. All links are in the description below.